All right, let's draw a velociraptor. The first thing I do is I find my reference image is a square shape. So I kind of make a square shape on the paper. And from there, I just try to make shapes in the general area where they correlate to the square of my reference image. I know the head is almost hitting the outside edge of the square, so that's why I started with the head. I knew it was in the upper left quadrant of the square, so that's kind of my starting point. If you're a beginner, you could use a grid method. The less lines of a grid, the harder it is. The more lines, the more complicated it might seem, but it actually makes it easier to get shapes in the right spots. I like using a grid method, but at the same time, I don't want to erase all the grid lines afterwards. So I just kind of use a figure drawing, kind of like quick sketch, to get all the shapes down and where everything's going to land as far as the gesture of the dinosaur in this case. But yeah, I'm just trying to get all the structure laid down, how it is referenced to my square image from Instagram that I took. I work rather lightly with pencil at the beginning stages just because you can erase a pencil and you can move things around. One of the advantages of drawing the square or outline of what my reference image is it allows me to make sure that I know that the dinosaur will fit on my paper. See, if I would have drawn the head of this velociraptor just 1/4 of an inch, a little bit bigger, that would have meant that the rest of the dinosaur probably wouldn't have landed on the paper. The tail would have had to go off the paper, and the feet would have probably have to also go off the paper. So by keeping the proportions correct using the square to square ratio of 1:1, it allowed me to make sure my dinosaur was going to be on the full sheet of paper. Because I know drawing in the past, I would focus on the head and I'd probably make it a little too big, and then that would push all the elements off the page, like I was talking about. It happens to the best of us, so if it happens to you, don't worry about it. But that's the advantage of making sure you have like your drawing square drawn out on the paper, or whatever your reference image is, you have that, like the ratio, let's say it's 4:5 or whatever, that's square or rectangle is on the paper, and then you can translate the image back and forth. Once all the elements of the drawing are in place and the locations are in the correct areas, then it's just coming down to proper shadow and cross-hatching and different pencil and pen techniques. Here I'm inking in my pencil drawing, and I'm just using some black like cross-hatching, well, not really cross-hatching, but just I go in one direction, try to follow the direction of the element, which in this case the velociraptor is a round chest, and just trying to make sure it follows the contours of the body of the animal or thing I'm drawing. At this stage, it's sometimes good to take a step back from your drawing and look just to see if you got all the contrast in the right areas. You want the dinosaur to kind of jump off the page, or whatever you're drawing jump off the page, and contrast will do that for you. If you have enough darks and lights, you can kind of make the image read properly. And I made sure that far leg was darker than the arms and everything, so it made the arms read forward. So whenever things are in light, they'll read closer to you, and things that are blacked out will be further away. So now I have the inking part done. At this point, you could say this drawing is complete, but I end up coloring it with Copic markers. Now, if you don't have Copic markers, alcohol markers are great, or at this point, you can use colored pencils or whatever you got. Since I have alcohol markers and I have colors that are gray in my set, I always start with the gray tones first. I find it easier at the end of the drawing to do all the shadow parts with the gray and then introduce the color afterwards, because the gray will actually just mix in with the color that I use and ends up becoming the shadow, and it almost is perfect every time. Not always, but like it seems to work out pretty good with these dinosaur drawings to use gray as the shadow and then go over it with layers of color. At this stage, I can kind of haphazardly go in with marks, and I don't have to get like super precise and precision with how I coat the color on the dinosaur, because I'm going to go over it with multiple layers. So if I miss a spot and didn't quite color it in perfectly, the next color might cover in that white spot that I missed with both either the gray or that tan color marker. So I'm coming in with at least 3 or 4 or 5 different shades of browns, just trying to pick up different like skin marks and colors, just to make it more like realistic and more variation in the skin color. Since most of the browns in this dinosaur are like an orange in color, sometimes I'll come in with a blue like you just saw and put pops of different colors inside the dinosaur, just so it's not all like orange or brown. You want that having different translucent colors in there will sometimes help the dinosaur pop a little bit more, especially when you're up close to the drawing. Might not read as much on the overall piece when you're far away, but up close it's kind of cool to see little pops of different colors in the dinosaur. So with my marker drawings, I like to kind of finish them off with a little bit of, it's called new pastel. Basically it's like white chalk. I like to put the glare and highlights on them, and even over the top of it I might put more texture in with pencil or pen or whatever I have that I think I need. In this case I put some pencil down, and then I went and erased a little bit more of the lines that I used that were kind of chicken scratch outside of the dinosaur. For this particular drawing, I put a little bit of a generic, little bit of a background in, just a little bit of green, just so the dinosaur isn't just standing there on a white piece of paper. But I would have said it was done before I even put this green on. But I decided to go a little bit extra, thinking maybe that transition of green color will help in a thumbnail or something. It does look cooler to have a background, so if you have the time, put it in a background. Well, if you made it this far, thanks a lot. Consider hitting that like button and maybe leave a comment. What should I draw next? This drawing is pretty much done, but hopefully your drawings turn out just as good. And follow along for the next video.